The house stood at the end of Harbinger Lane, a spectre of weathered wood and shattered windows. It had stood empty for as long as anyone could remember. Some whispered it had been empty for a century. No one dared to approach, let alone step foot inside. The townsfolk knew its secret. They knew what lurked within its bowels. The heart of the house's darkness resided in the basement. Amidst the dampness and cobwebs, a chest lay forgotten. Or so it seemed. This was no ordinary chest. This was a conduit to something ancient and evil. The chest was crafted from a wood so dark it seemed to absorb the light. Strange symbols, barely visible in the gloom, were etched across its surface. The townsfolk knew the chest's power. They knew it held something unspeakable, something that should never be disturbed. Stories passed down through generations spoke of a time when the chest was open, a time when darkness had consumed their town, a time they never wanted to revisit. The elders of the town remembered. They remembered the stories their grandparents told them, stories whispered by the firelight, tales of the chest and the evil it contained. They spoke of a time when curiosity had outweighed wisdom, a time when the townsfolk had paid a terrible price. Their whispers spoke of a being of immense power trapped within the chest, a being that fed on fear and despair. They told of a time when the chest had been opened, a time when the being had been unleashed upon the world, a time when the town had been plunged into darkness.
The elders spoke of sacrifices made to appease the entity, rituals performed to contain its evil. They spoke of a pact made between the townsfolk and the being, a pact sealed in blood and fear. The chest was to remain closed. The being was to remain trapped. Only then would the town be safe.
But time has a way of eroding even the strongest of pacts. The younger generation, restless and disbelieving, scoffed at the elders' tales. They saw the stories as nothing more than folklore, myths meant to frighten children. They refused to believe that such evil could exist. One moonless night, a group of friends dared each other to visit the abandoned house. Led by the brash and arrogant Jake, they saw it as a test of courage, a way to prove their bravery and their disdain for the old wives' tales. They vowed to open the chest, to show everyone that there was nothing to fear.
As they crept through the overgrown yard, a sense of foreboding settled upon them. The air grew heavy. The silence was broken only by the sound of their own breathing, but they pressed on, their youthful arrogance overriding their fear. They would be the ones to finally unlock the secrets of the haunted chest.
They would be the ones to finally unlock the secrets of the haunted chest.
The basement was worse than they had imagined. Cobwebs clung to their faces. The air was thick with the stench of decay, but there, in the center of the room, sat the chest. It seemed to pulse with an eerie light, a beacon in the darkness. Jake, emboldened by the bravado he had displayed for his friends, stepped forward. He reached for the chest's lid, his hand trembling slightly. He hesitated for a moment, as if sensing the weight of his actions. Then, with a grunt, he threw open the chest.
Silence. At first, there was only silence. The air hung heavy and still. Then, a cold wind swept through the basement. It seemed to claw at their clothes, their skin. The temperature plummeted. Their breath formed clouds in the air.
From the depths of the open chest, whispers began to emanate, whispers that slithered through the air, wrapping around their minds, whispers that spoke of their deepest fears, their darkest desires.
Your fears, your desires?
The air shimmered and danced, and then the visions began. Each of them saw something different, something personal, something terrifying.
I saw my friends turn on me, their faces twisted in hatred and rage.
I saw my family consumed by flames, their screams echoing in my ears.
I saw myself trapped in a mirror, my reflection a grotesque mockery of my former self.
The visions were so real, so visceral, that they felt their sanity slipping away. They screamed, but their screams were swallowed by the darkness. They tried to run, to escape the horrors that unfolded before them, but their legs felt like lead. They were trapped, prisoners in their own personal nightmares. As quickly as they had begun, the visions vanished. The whispers faded into an unsettling silence, but the terror remained. They were no longer the same people who had entered the basement. The chest had changed them, corrupted them.
We have to get out of here, now!
The door, it's shut.
Panic surged through them. They stumbled back from the chest, desperate to escape the nightmare they had unleashed. But as they turned to flee, they found the way blocked.
No, the chest, it's closing.
They threw themselves against the door, their frantic cries for help echoing through the empty house. But their efforts were futile. The door wouldn't budge. The chest slammed shut with a resounding boom, plunging them into darkness. Days later, search parties combing the woods surrounding the abandoned house discovered a lone survivor. Michael, his mind shattered and his body racked with tremors, was found huddled in the corner of the basement. The chest lay open, its dark interior seemingly empty. He babbled incoherently about the horrors he had witnessed, about the whispers that haunted his waking moments, about the faces he saw in the shadows, about the pact that had been broken, but his words were dismissed as the ramblings of a traumatized mind.
The whispers, they never stop. The faces, they're everywhere. The pact, it's broken.
Michael returned to town a shell of his former self. He never spoke of that night again. Not really. But the fear remained, etched into his eyes, a constant reminder of the evil that lurked within the chest. The town, once a place of quiet contentment, was now shrouded in a palpable fear. The whispers that had once been dismissed as folklore now echoed through the streets. The elders shook their heads, their faces etched with a mixture of sorrow and grim satisfaction. The abandoned house remained, a stark reminder of the night terror had visited their town. No one dared to approach it. No one dared to speak its name. The pact had been broken, the evil had been unleashed, and the town would never be the same. The townsfolk lived in a perpetual state of unease. Their laughter was a little less hearty, their smiles a little less genuine. They knew that the evil that lurked within the chest was still out there, waiting, watching. Years passed. The memory of that night faded into legend, but the fear remained, passed down through generations. A cautionary tale whispered in hushed tones, the story of the haunted chest and the town that lived in its shadow. Some say that on the anniversary of that fateful night, the whispers can still be heard emanating from the abandoned house. Some say that the faces of the missing teenagers can be seen in the windows. Some say that the chest is waiting for the next group of unsuspecting souls to unleash its evil upon the world. The legend of the haunted chest became a part of the town's fabric, a dark secret that bound them together in fear, a reminder that some things are best left undisturbed. And so the town remained, trapped between the past and the present, haunted by the memory of what had been and the fear of what might yet come. The chest lay dormant, but not destroyed, its evil slumbering, waiting for the right moment to awaken once more. For deep within the heart of the town, hidden beneath the veneer of normalcy, a darkness stirred, a darkness that whispered of ancient pacts and broken promises, a darkness that promised a reckoning.
The chest will open again.
A darkness that whispered a single chilling truth. the chest would open again,